The angel of the Lord appeared to her and said, "You are sterile and childless, but you are going to conceive and have a son. Now see to it that you drink no wine or other fermented drink, and that you do not eat anything unclean, because you will conceive and give birth to a son. No razor may be used from his head, and because the boy is to be a Nazarite, set apart to God from birth, and I will begin the deliverance of Israel from the hands of the Philistines." Well, hallelujah. We got our guy, right? We needed a judge. What does a judge do? Well, according to chapter 2, a judge delivers the people. So we've had 40 years of Philistines. We need our judge to come up and deliver the people. We got him. We got him. We're going to be a special guy set apart from birth. Now, this Nazarite vow is a mention back to Numbers chapter 6. And it was the kind of thing where it's a little bit like fasting in the sense that you could set yourself apart for a period of time and say, I want to kind of devote myself to the Lord. So there's a couple things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to cut my hair. I'm going to just kind of let it grow long. And I'm going to not have any fermented drink, right? And I'm going to keep the purity laws of clean and unclean in the Old Testament. I'm not going to go near a dead body and so on and so forth. You can see that in number 6 if you want to see the details. Never before has a Nazarite vow actually been applied to someone for their whole life. But here God has a special deliverer set apart. And so the text is setting us up. So I'm just here to tell you, we're going to read a great story. We're going to read a story of deliverance, right? It's what the text seems to say. Verse 6, the woman went to her husband and said, "A man of God came to me, and he looked like an angel of God, very awesome. And I didn't ask him where he came from, and he didn't tell me his name, but he said, 'You will conceive and give birth to a son.' And then no drink, no wine, or no other fermented drink, or anything that you eat. Do not eat anything unclean, because the boy will be a Nazarite of God from birth until the day of his death." Wow. So what was presented as temporary in number 6, for example, you could say, I'm going to take a month, and I'm going to take the Nazarite vow for a month, or I'm going to take it for 3 months or a year or something. It's going to be applied to this little baby for life, birth to death. Manoah prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, I beg you, let the man of God you sent to us come and teach us how to bring up this boy and who is to be born." Okay, well, it seems like a good dad, right? Manoah cries to God and says, "Hey, help us raise this guy." It's pretty unique that we're going to raise a Nazarite from day one. God heard Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman while she was out in the field, and but her husband Manoah was not with her. The woman hurried to tell her husband, "He's here, the man who appeared the other day, he's here." Manoah got up and followed his wife, and when he came to the man, he said, "Are you the man who talked to the wife?" "I am," he said. So Manoah asked him, "When your words are fulfilled, what is to be the rule for the boy's life and work?" Again, reasonable question. New dad, I kind of can relate to him. Our little daughter just turned 2 months 2 days ago. And so new dad wants to figure out, how am I going to deal with this? My wife never could conceive. Now she's going to conceive, and it's going to be a special son, and we're going to have to just kind of figure this one out. And so he asked that question. The angel of the Lord answered, "Your wife must do all I have told her." Kind of an interesting answer. I'm not really going to tell you. I told her. You can get it from her. She knows, and you don't. And something's going on in the text here. "She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, or drink any wine or other fermented drink, and not eat anything unclean. So she must do everything I have commanded her." Manoah said to the angel, "We would like you to stay until we prepare a young goat for you." The angel of the Lord replied, "Even though," kind of a little beast feast, right? Just a goat, but that idea, you came and you told me good news. I'm gonna make a meal for you. The angel replied and said, "Even though you detain me, I will not eat any of your food. But if you prepare a burnt offering, offer to the Lord." Manoah didn't realize this was an angel of the Lord. So we got a wife who's never named, who gets what's going on, and we got a husband who is named, who doesn't get what's going on. Then Manoah inquired of the angel of the Lord, "What is your name, so that we may honor you, and that when your word comes true?" Excuse me. There's a lot going on in that sentence about what is your name. If you think back to Jacob, when he wrestles with whatever he wrestled with, he asked for a name. The ancient Near East, the understanding was when you could name a god, you could then command the god to do the things that the god did. So, for example, Baal, for many years, for many centuries, was worshipped as the god of rain. And so if you knew which god provided rain, if you knew the name of the god that provided rain, you could call out to that god by name. And what is that god forced to do? It's forced to make rain. So this is a power play going on here. I know we don't always see it that way, but that's because we don't live in the ancient Near Eastern context. Getting the name is getting control. which is interesting if you think about Moses. When Moses says at the burning bush, remember, he says, well, who do I say sent me to deliver the people? And God gives a name that isn't a name. He gives a verb, right? He goes, well, what's your name? Jumping. Well, jumping's not a name. God says, I am. Tell him I am sent you. And Moses like, man, I'm going to do that. I am? Really? That's what you want me to say? But that whole thing is God never gives his real name or a name that can give them power. His name is I am who I am, or I will be who I will be. It's a position that God says, even if you know who I am, you will not be able to command what I do. So there's a play going on here with this whole name deal. Anyway, verse 18, he says, why do you ask my name? It's beyond understanding. The angel knows very well why he asks his name. Manoah took a young goat together with a grain offering and sacrificed it on a rock to the Lord. And the Lord did an amazing thing while Manoah and his wife watched. As the fire blazed up to the altar towards heaven, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame. Seeing this, Manoah and his wife fell with their faces to the ground. When the angel of the Lord did not show himself again to Manoah and his wife, Manoah realized that it was an angel of the Lord. Little slow, Manoah, but you finally got it. When you see the angel go up in a flame, it's like, that really was an angel. Okay, wife knew it all along. Manoah wasn't following. Verse 22, we're doomed to die. We've just seen God. And now we start to see one of the problems when each man does what is right in his own eyes. When, or as chapter 13, verse 1 says, Israel did evil in the eyes of the Lord. What you immediately have is you have a lack of spiritual sensitivity. In this particular text, there's a lot of neat things going on. If we had more time, we'd take time to see this. But what the text is showing us is the named character doesn't know what's going on, Manoah, and the unnamed character, the wife, has very clear spiritual sensitivity to this was an angel of the Lord. And so watch what happens here. The wife answered, verse 23, if the Lord meant to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted a burnt offering and a grain offering from our hands and shown us all these things and now told us this. Well, she's right. So she understands what's going on and the man doesn't. He lacks the spiritual sensitivity. Verse 24, the woman gave birth to a boy and named him Samson, and he grew and the Lord blessed him. And the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahana Dan between Zorah and Eshtal. All I can say is it looks like it's going to be a good story. We got our deliverer. We needed a deliverer, right? The Philistines have been roaming now for 40 years, and so God raises up a very special deliverer. I just want you to see that there's a special birth that always should trigger something in your minds. If you follow through special births, Isaac was a special birth, right, between Abraham and Sarah. Jacob and Esau were a special birth between Isaac and Rebekah. Here we've got a special birth of Samson. Later we're going to have a special birth in the New Testament of Jesus, aren't we? And it's going to be a very specific line that's the Bible is trajectorying to help us show what's going on in the text. So the nice thing is we'll just kind of go quickly here and kind of run through the story, but you already know it's good. Right? I mean, we've got a deliverer, he's raising up and everything. Chapter 14, verse 1, let's meet Samson. Samson went down to Timnah. Timnah's a major city in the Philistine area. Samson went down to Timnah, and there he saw a young Philistine woman. When he returned, he said to his father and mother, I've seen a Philistine woman in Timnah. Get her for me as my wife. Okay. We see what's going on. Samson sees, Samson likes. Each person, chapter 13, verse 1, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord. We're going to have a play on eyes here. Samson sees a young Philistine woman. He's raised up to deliver them from the Philistines. This guy is down in Timnah looking at the Philistine woman and goes, well, I like her. Get her for me. And what you're going to see is Samson is going to be the ultimate model, or if you will, the perfect anti-deliverer of someone who does exactly what the culture does. The story of Samson is the story of someone who acts based on what he sees. Saw a good-looking woman, that's the one I want. His father and mother replied, isn't there an acceptable woman among your relatives or among your people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines to get a wife? Circumcision is the sign of the covenantal promise of God. And so when they say, when mom and dad say, you're looking at an uncircumcised woman or from the uncircumcised people, those are the people who Samson is supposed to inflict judgment on to deliver his people, which are the circumcised, which are the covenantal people of God's blessing. Do you really want to pick a wife from among those who you're supposed to judge? What does he say? Samson said to her, "Get her for me. She's the right one for me." Her parents did not know that this was from the Lord. So we have a rebellion of Samson from what he's supposed to be doing. He's picking a wife from the Philistines, and the Lord goes, well, I'll use that. And what we start to see is that God is going to use both the faithful and the faithless in the same way for his promise and for his glory. Watch how the story unfolds. Who was seeking, his parents didn't know that this was from the Lord, and he was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines. For at the time they were ruling over Israel. Again, never God's plan, but God allows it because the people are doing what is right in their own eyes. Samson went down to Timnah together with his father and mother, and as they approached the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a young lion came roaring towards him. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him in power, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. Number one, not sure about tearing a young goat. Not sure how that works, but apparently if you tear young goats, and that's quite easy, I think that's what the text is suggesting, that Samson could do what you can do with a lion as you would a young goat. Not sure I could tear a young goat, but nonetheless he tears a lion this way. And so this is our first thing, our first sign, our first Samson's special because the Spirit of the Lord is upon him. Now, I want you also to kind of see that Samson doesn't get that either. He's kind of like Daddy. He actually will come to think that his power is in his hair. His power is not in his hair. It's not because Samson had long hair, so he tore apart the lion like you would a young goat. No, the text says the Spirit of the Lord comes upon Samson and he tears apart the lion. But Samson's not going to see this. So what we're going to see is God working in one way. Samson, our unknown hero in a sense, is working in another way. But he told neither his father or mother what he had done. And he walked down, he talked to the woman, and he liked her. And sometime later they went back and to marry her. And he turned aside to look in the lion's carcass. And in it was a swarm of bees and some honey, which he scooped out with his hands and ate it as he went along. What did Samson see? We saw honey. I like honey. I want honey. I think I should get some honey. Which would be a violation of his Nazirite vow, because as a Nazirite you don't touch a dead carcass. So the text goes out of our way to remind us this is a violation. But notice why Samson's doing it. Look good. I mean, honey, think about it. I'm hungry. I want some honey. This looks good. I'll grab it. And notice that it even reminds us. Look at how it reads here. When he rejoined his parents, he gave them some of it, and they ate it, but he did not tell them he had taken the honey from the lion's carcass. Why? Because Mommy and Daddy know that he's to be living according to the Nazirite vow for his entire life. And so what you start to see is the story unfolds. And I'm going to start to just summarize some of it if you'll allow me.